pattern, so many pat. Hello everyone, it's Thomas Jujube, and welcome to Talking Jujube, where I talk about the latest comics, episodes, and news in Transformers, Kamen Rider, Super Sentai, and Power Rangers. Today, we're talking about the episodes and comics that debuted in July, along with this marking the first appearance of Transformers in an official review style for Talking Jujube. Woohoo! And also, it's important to note, I'm not going to actually talk about any news in this. There's so much. I made its own video about that, which you can click right here in the corner to go check that out. So let's get into the reviews. Alright, so as I said, we are getting our first official review of sorts for Transformers on Talking Jujube. Woo! Celebration! Yeah! No one cares. So I'm going over the comics, the prequel comics for the Bumblebee movie, and I don't really like them that much, and it's just because of a weird thing of mine that I'll get into a second. So there are two comics, but I'm kind of just gonna go over both of them kind of quickly here, because I didn't know they were out yet, so I'm just gonna review both of them here. Basically, we're following Bumblebee. As I said, it's a prequel comic, so we're following Bumblebee and this one dude who I don't even know his name. I'm just gonna call him the spy agent. So basically, we're following Bumblebee and the spy, doing spy missions with another girl spy, and during that, they're being chased by Decepticons. One of them is Diabla, who's orange, and the other is, I don't know his name either, but he looks kind of like Optimus Prime, just all black, which is kind of creepy. But basically, they're the whole thing is like a spy kind of thing. I was gonna say Mission Impossible, but Mission Impossible is more climbing up buildings, so definitely probably not like Mission Impossible. It's like those kind of 80s little things. I swear, the first issue, it actually has its own theme song, and I'm kind of smiling when I'm reading it, and I'm kind of just this is funny. This is a comic. Why do we have a theme song in a comic? That made zero sense to me. I mean, obviously I get they're kind of going for hey, look, it's comic. It's like an 80s spy thriller. We're gonna put in the theme song. But no. So they're basically it's kind of confusing what they're doing. Basically, they're trying to kill this one guy, who's evil, of course, because then Bumblebee wouldn't be killing him. But then what happens is they find he's already killed, and then I think it's implied he was killed by a Decepticon, because then a Decepticon kills the head of their agency, and they're basically, the spy gets on the phone, or they were making a getaway from the Decepticons, and then the spy on the phone realizes they've been fired or something from the agency, and then because they don't know if they're spies, so then the guy comes out and it looks like he's gonna kill the girl and Bumblebee, but he can't kill Bumblebee, of course, since he's a giant robot. But then the Decepticons show up in the nick of time, so Decepticons saved the day. Never thought I'd say that. And then they start getting away, and then they're trying to, fight Decepticons, because what else do we do? I do like the design of Bumblebee, a lot, which is weird, because I wasn't expecting to like it. Looking at these pictures, yeah, I do like it, so, if they make a Studio Series figure, I might get it, because that's pretty cool. And there's a lot of acronyms in this, so many acronyms, that I don't even read what they're called, because I think all that really matters is, nothing. I don't know, there are a lot of acronyms for stuff. Bumblebee spends a lot of the issues fighting Decepticons, and it's intercut with human action, which is actually what I would like to see the movies do. I think the movies do that though, but it feels the robot and human action feels good. But here's my biggest or actually, I'm gonna finish going over pretty much the rest of the comic. I mean, there isn't really much else for the rest of it. They just get into a secret base and figure out who is helping the Decepticons. So they go to them and they realize they're being blackmailed by the Decepticons to do one thing. But they also know that they're Transformers, Cybertronians, and then when the bad guys get in the car to go, tell somebody else, oh, we're all being played by Transformers, the robot transforms, and it's dead end. So we have literally 3 Decepticons in this whole issue, and one Bumblebee. And then the issue ends with Bumblebee about being hit by missiles, but I think he's gone through worse in the comics, so it's not really oh my gosh, will Bumblebee survive? Here's my biggest problem problem with it. It is called a prequel comic, and it doesn't feel like a prequel at all. It just feels like its own story. Like, we already know, if this is in the Last Night canon, the cinematic universe canon, Bumblebee fought in World War II as, you know, a World War II soldier, and he killed a lot of people on the opposing side. But he couldn't speak, or at least he had his mouthpiece implying he couldn't speak. In this issue, he's talking a lot, and he has his mouth. And he's also a different vehicle mode, but that's not really important because, you know, Transformers can change their vehicle modes. So, he's talking a lot in this. And the 3 Decepticons and Bumblebee are like there's one specific shot where they're in clear sight of a lot of humans. So I'm thinking like, okay, if we have this in the same universe as Optimus Prime transforming for the first time in front of Sam and he's surprised, or the alien attack on Chicago and no one like knows it's coming or something, then how is that in the same universe as people clearly seeing Transformers? I swear there's a guy with a camera in one scene when he's looking at like Bumblebee and Diablo fighting. So this like doesn't fit in continuity at all, like at all. Like, how does this fit in the same universe where Charlie is confused about Bumblebee? Bumblebee is like they're throwing cars at each other, like they're in clear sight, unless you're telling me no one managed to see them. But also, since Bumblebee can talk, it makes no sense how he can't talk in his own movie. Now, I do know that in the Comic-Con footage, they showed off that Bumblebee loses his memory, which is why he's scared of Charlie. But that's the rest of the world didn't lose their memory. So like, there's these people who still know about Transformers. There's like the whole agency who I think knows about Transformers. These other people who know about Transformers. So honestly, it's just kind of the fact that I talk about continuity and I'm too focused on continuity. Like, if one little thing's different in the next scene, ugh, why? I'm just kind of like a continuity buff, I guess. Like, I just care too much about something's continuity, and I think that's just a real reason I didn't like this that much. So, because I mean, it's fine. I don't really hate it. It's fine. So yeah, it's just fine. I'm gonna keep reviewing the comics though for this. So I'm excited to see where the rest of this goes. Hopefully, maybe they'll explain him losing his voice. But the fact he's speaking here and Optimus Prime said, "Bumblebee, I haven't heard your voice since Cybertron fell." Well, yeah, there's already a continuity error there with what it's supposed to fit in with. But that's about it for the Bumblebee comics. And sorry if I sound negative towards them. I don't really hate it that much. I don't hate it at all. It's just kind of okay. So it had been a while since I watched Build, before I watched all these episodes at once, and I was definitely looking forward to watching these, and I definitely enjoyed all these. This was definitely a good batch of episodes. There are a few problems here and there, but again, overall very good, like Build normally is. And this is, I believe, the second to last month of Build, so we're getting close to that ending. Poor Build. So we start off with where we ended last month, where they figure out Katsuragi's dad is possibly evil because they already knew he was alive. Now they know he might be evil. So they, like, Grease is like saying like, oh, what if he's the mastermind behind all of the, you know, stuff that's been going on in the last 10 years, and Sento obviously refuses to believe that. And throughout these episodes as well, Katsuragi has been talking a lot more, and it's kind of like this like second person, like this kind of assistant or like the second voice to Sento. So that's actually really interesting. I like the dynamic between the two. So it's just Sento and another Sento, I guess, so to say. So then Evil attacks, and then he destroys the government of Toto, and he says this was the last like remaining thing that needed to happen before he could start to control the country. So he destroys Toto, and then as the Prime Minister Mito, he basically says like, the country is united, there will be no more weapons, no more of that. And then that also means that he made the Kamen Riders fugitives again. So that's kind of cool, but it's kind of weird to see that they're fugitives again, but they don't really do much with it, except I think they're going to do that in the movie. But we can't see the movie for another like 6 months, so that's disappointing. The movie will play a more important role later on. So then we also see while Evil is attacking / destroying the government building, elsewhere Cross and Grease are attacking Mad Rogue and some hard guardians that are kind of just cannon fodder at this point. It's like, oh look, it's that thing that was really important for 2 episodes and now it's just a thing. And we see Ryuga then like starts to become more angry, and he becomes more powerful, and he gets more memories of Evil. Basically, when Evil created the black hole, then Ryuga gets a similar memory where he's destroying all of Mars. And then, just like that, he starts to become more, like, angry. We get a lot of shots of the interior helmets of the riders, so that's pretty cool. But we also got that earlier with Build, so it's not, like, anything new, but it's cool to see that's happening a lot more. So then, Ryuga starts to just, like, flat out, like, destroying Mad Rogue. Like, I mean, not really destroying him, but he's, like, really taking him to town. He's doing all these punches. He's like, how did you get so powerful? So then when he knocks down Mad Rogue, he magically drops the Dragon Full bottle, the normal Dragon Full bottle. Then Ryuga picks it up, and then it turns silver, which we know is going to be in the movie. And then, so we're getting some movie stuff here and there. And then then all of a sudden, Grease and Ryuga are attacked by something. We get some build driver noises, and then we see another build. I get it, because that's the name of the rider. We see another build standing on the far off in the distance, and he sees it, or he saw the full bottle, and he said, a silver dragon full bottle. Interesting. Hazard level 7. So Ryuga is now even stronger at hazard level 7, and as we know later, Sento is also going to reach hazard level 7. So hazard levels are just kind of being increased on a whim. So then we also got a confirmation in this that the build driver was made by Shinobu Katsuragi. I'm going to refer to him as Shinobu, and the son is Katsuragi, since that's, I think, what everyone's used to, and that's what everyone usually refers to them as. So we get confirmation that Shinobu created the rider system, but Katsuragi finished the rider system. But then in a later episode, they say that Shinobu made the hazard trigger. And literally early on in the series, the hazard trigger was referred to as Katsuragi's forbidden item, so implying he made it. So again, we're kind of getting like, oh look, here's the thing they said he made, but now it's a thing that he made, and now it's a thing that they made, and now it's just kind of a big mess. But it's not like a big problem, really. It's just a big problem if you make a theory that the Evil trigger and the hazard trigger are based off the same driver, because the one was made, never mind. So, Gentoku is also disappointed that he failed his father, because the government's just been destroyed for Todo, and obviously he was trying to fix the government for his father in Todo. So he's just kind of like distraught, like, well, brilliant, I failed. And Sento says, no, you haven't, like, we can still do it. He says it later on also as well, like, we're gonna keep fighting for it. But then we got a fight scene between Mad Rogue, and Build Genius. They defeat Mad Rogue, but then another build swoops in and attacks him, and then reveals himself to be Shinobu, Katsuragi's father, which is not a big surprise because everyone kind of already knew this, and I already knew this too because I was spoiled, but that's okay. So then in the next episode, we realize that Shinobu is just full on evil. Like, he's not being mind controlled at all. It seemed. Well, yeah, he's not being mind controlled, which is cool because it seems like it'd be like, oh, he's being mind controlled, we just have to stop him from being mind controlled and he's on our side. No, he's just flat out evil, in quotes, of course. And Sento can't really bring himself to fight him because it's his father, despite him being evil. So then Grease and Rogue and Ryuga are all attacking him. Yeah, Grease and Ryuga showed up all of a sudden. So they're all attacking this evil another build, and he's actually beating all of them, and his explanation is kind of just like, okay. He basically says the build driver was created for him specifically, so because of that, even in the base form build forms, he's still powerful. So I'm just kind of like, that's an explanation, but like, he can't beat, no, he could beat Genius, I think. I don't know, but I feel like he could, and it's kind of dumb because he's a Nin comic and he's able to beat the final form. So, sure. His explanation is just, oh, it was made for me, so I'm the one who's meant to use it, I guess. So, I guess that explanation kind of works with Evolt, though. Like, it was made for me, so I'm the strongest using it. So, I guess they have done this before. And Ryuga does end up kind of going berserk again, and the explanation from Shinobu is, when Evolt used all his power to create that black hole, it started triggering the genetics and memories in Ryuga, and that causes him to just have a desire for war, like when he had the Splash Driver, except on a much, much larger and scarier scale. And we also start to see that, like, when he punches people, it creates like a black hole in his like hand, so it's like we can start to see like genes of evil coming forward. Then Ryuga's about to like kill Shinobu because he's in this berserker state, and Sento goes into genius form and stops him. And then when everyone's back at the cafe, everyone's kind of angry, like, Sento, why did you attack Ryuga? We almost got Shinobu. And he said, like, you know, he's like, well, that's my father. He's probably good, guys. Like, he's not evil, guys. And then everyone's like, yeah, no, he's evil. So that causes Grease and Gentaku to leave. And Ryuga is hurt from the genius form attack, which is kind of, like, crazy. So then Sento's like, well, he has to be good. But then in his mind, he talks to Katsuragi again, so Katsuragi is playing a big part in this. And Sento basically says to Katsuragi, like, why do you think he's evil? It's probably because, and then they explain, it's probably because the nebula gas, he was hit by the nebula gas when the Pandora's box, or the nebula light, Pandora box light. He was hit by the light when the Pandora's box was opened. But then, so that caused him to be, you know, evil, unstable, and work with evil. And then Sento said, but wouldn't turning back into a Kamen Rider with the nebula gas reform him like it did to Genjaku? And then he says, or could he just, like, he can't live with himself because of the fact he created the evil driver, the build driver, you know, does he not feel like he can go back? And Katsuragi says, oh, so you do understand. And then that's the end of that. So I guess it's assumed the reason he was evil was because he already did these things, and when he was good, basically, he couldn't bring himself to, like, he can't go back, really. He's like, I'm already evil, I can't go back to being good, but he kind of does. So the explanation does kind of go out the window. But then Misora, like, sees that Sento is sad, and she says, like, he's the one that pulls him through everything, but he's kind of just given up on his father at this point. So then she gets, like, a phone call, I guess. We never really find out if, like, what it is. A phone call, a text message from Evil that basically was telling her she can help out Sento. And no, like you could maybe, but not from Evil's help, because Evil then, I guess, kidnaps her, puts her in the nebula gas chamber, and turns her into the CD Smash. So when Bill gets a distress call from Misora and he goes to help out, guess what? There's a CD Smash there to greet him. There's a CD Smash there to greet him, and then another build shows up as well. But the thing is, that this is what I really like. He can't just do his normal genius finisher and cleans Misora, because she has Vernage inside of her. And because of that, like explained by Shinobu, it's causing some like problems with the Lost Smash treatment. And basically, he can't do his normal genius finisher cleansing move, or else it'll kill Misora, which he obviously doesn't want to do. So honestly, at this point, I was like, wow, Sento must be in like a lot of, like, he must be distraught here, because first his father is attacking him and he finds out he's evil, and then his, I assume, like, sister, I guess he thinks of her as a sister, and then he finds out she is trying to kill him as well, and if he tries to save her, he'll kill her. So he's like he gets like his butt kicked, because he's like probably like, what do I do? And then Ryuga shows up to save the day, like always, which was nice. They had a nice moment. He said, like, oh, why are you crying? And he said, like, I'm not crying. And he's like, all right, good, then get up here. And he said, for the record, I wasn't crying. And then, you know, they transform, they start fighting. They're trying to figure out, like, how to save Misora, because at this point, Sento's kind of just given up on his father. And then this is what I really like about Bill, the fact that he's super smart, that he can figure out stuff like this that I didn't think of, which is basically, Rider kicked Misora into Cross's attack once he became evil, like berserk mode, and his punches started creating black holes, like the black hole form. He waited until that specific moment until he could Rider kick Misora into the attack, and then there's just a big explosion, and she notices, like, well, you killed Cross Z and your friend. And then we see that Misora's fine, and we see Cross Z is fine. Sento explains, since she had Vernage inside of her, and that was what was causing the problem, he basically pushed Vernage into Ryuga, which ended up cleansing the evil genes inside of him, so he wouldn't go berserk anymore. And in the process, getting rid of Vernage allowed Misora to just be removed of the nebula gas, or the Lost Smash treatment, like normal. So in turn, in one move, he saved both of them, which is pretty cool. And then he also when he attacks his father, the rabbit bottle falls out of the build driver, and when he holds it, it turns golden. In turn, Shinobu realizes he's also at hazard level 7. So both of our main riders are at hazard level 7, which is cool. And I think this is just their excuse to be like, here, the gold and silver dragon rabbit full bottles. So we're all ready for the movie, but the movie doesn't happen for a couple episodes. So now that we have the gold rabbit, Shinobu leaves, and then what's his name? Evil is like, you failed. Well, it's alright. We have some playtime. And he shows on a screen that Grease and Rogue are coming into their base to attack them. Or so we think. Because in the next episode, we see they get captured and they're saved by Sento and Ryuga. But we find out they wanted to get captured because they were given the nebula gas treatment just enough so that their hazard levels were raised. So basically now they're more powerful than they were before because they want to help out in fights, of course, since they're still stuck with Splash drivers. So, and they don't really have final forms yet. So then, Sento's experimenting on Ryuga. He says, you're cleans of the evil gene craziness. And the reason I'm kind of confused on this is because we know Ryuga's like evil for some reason in the Build movie. And I kind of thought once we saw like how he was getting crazy in Berserk, I thought, okay, this is going to happen enough that then he just becomes full on evil in the Build movie. And then we're going to save him there. But then that obviously is not going to happen. Or maybe they're going to do something else with the evil genes in the movie. So maybe something is going to happen. I don't know. Because the movie takes place between episode 45 and 46. So currently we're on episode 44. Where Sento is experimenting on Ryuga, as I said. And he's trying to create the Blizzard Knuckle. As he says, he's making the Blizzard Knuckle to stop Evolt. Because when he was when they were saving Grease and Rogue, the father came and attacked Build. But what he did, since Build was for some reason using his hazard forms, how fortunate, he like hits the driver or the hazard trigger in a specific spot, which causes it to like kind of short out and like damage him, or not damage him, he's just kind of stuck. But then he sends him away, and I don't remember specifically what he says, but he says like, curse your weakness, humanity will perish if you're this weak, and he sends him away, which is obviously what someone would say when they're trying to stop Evil, not when they are working with Evil. So this causes Sento to think his father is good again. So there's a lot of back and forth like, the father's mind control, no, the father's just evil, no, now the father's good. So, and then now the father's dead. So there's a bit of back and forth here, but I think that's kind of interesting. Like, you don't really know what side this person's on. So then, now we get to a part where it's just a weird Grease moment where he's like, he sees the Misora body pillow, and he's like, should I get it or should I not get it? And this is one of 2 times that he's just weird. There's another moment in the cookout episode, in episode 46, I believe. Not the cookout episode, but the cookout moment in that episode. And that's just weird also when he's deciding whether or not he should wipe his sweat with towel. Usually that works, but this time it was just kind of over the top and really, really weird. So I wasn't a big fan of it. Another weird humor moment I guess I'll talk about is Gentoku, because he did a lot of that shirt thing where he shows his shirt and it says a word on it. That was a bit weird at times, but this episode actually has one of my favorites of those. So I think it redeemed itself by the end of these episodes, so I'll get to that in a second. Basically, Sento realizes that the trigger, the black hole trigger, and the hazard trigger probably have the same weakness because of what his father did to his trigger. So he realizes the black hole and the hazard trigger have the same like design. So because of that, the black hole trigger must have the same weakness. So Evil calls him at one point and says, well, I can do anything to your friends and family at any time. So if you don't bring me the last CD bottle, which he also happens to have, if you don't bring me the CD bottle, I'll hurt them. So Sento realizes, okay, I have to go. So, well, that's what he thinks. So he gets up in like the middle of the night, it seems, but it's actually the morning. He goes to Evil with the Blizzard Knuckle and he says, no, I'm not giving you this bottle. And Evil said, oh, well, I figured as much. That's why I'm in my black hole form. But then all the other riders show up and they say, we're not going to let you do this on your own. So they all transform. It's awesome. I think 4 rider transformation, but it's a 5 rider battle, which is always cool. And by the end of it, they use a Blizzard Knuckle. Ryuga uses the Blizzard Knuckle, and he hits the Hazard Trigger, or the Black Hole Trigger, and it seemingly kills Evil. Like, he explodes, you know, there's nothing left. So I was thinking, like, oh, they did kill Evil. There's nothing left but his driver. But obviously, we know Evil's not alive, or is alive still. We know he's coming back. So at this point, I was just wondering, so is he really dead? Is he not dead? And then Shinobu shows up in Haka Gatling, and then picks up the 3, we see 3 of the purified Lost Smash bottles. So basically all 4 of the Lost Smash bottles are all purified, they just need to be placed on the panel. In the next episode, Shinobu takes the riders into the Pandora Tower and basically explains, oh, okay, well, Evolt's driver, Evolt put a piece of his DNA in this driver, and he's intending to be brought back to life. But I made sure that wouldn't happen because he has him in this jar thing that apparently stops it from happening. So then he says he's been waiting for the right chance to betray Evolt. He's been apparently waiting 10 years. I guess it took 10 years to find the right chance. And I guess this was the right chance. So now basically he's not intending to bring Evolt back. He's intending to use the he's still intending to form the Black Pandora panel with all the Lost Smash bottles. But he's not intending to use it as Evolt wants. We find out that the full panel can create wormholes through time, or just space, through time space, I guess. It creates wormholes to 2 other places. Evolt wants it so that he can destroy a planet and in mere seconds be transported to another planet and eat it. And basically just eat the whole universe in like no time at all. Like, I'd assume probably a couple days, if not a week. So he's intending to use this so he can gain more power, and he wants to be the only thing in the universe, which he says will be the new world. But if you're the only thing, there's no world. So your plan's a little flawed there, Evil. But anyway, we realize that Evil accounted for this, kind of, sorta. He put part of his DNA into Utsumi, Mad Rogue, before he was destroyed. So Utsumi comes out and turns into Mad Rogue, but it's Evolt. And then he starts attacking the riders until he gets his normal Evil driver back and goes into his Evil base form. And then everyone basically escapes, not before Evil kills Shinobu, and he tells something to Sento, but he whispers it, and I thought, not again. It was literally just like the moment in Kamen Rider X-Aid where Laser tells X-Aid something, but all the music, all the sound cuts out, so you don't know what he says until later on. Thankfully, I think, it was in the same episode that we find out what he said, so they didn't do it really in the same way. So his father's dying words, he gave him the Project Cross and Project Build cards, and his dying words were that there's a white Pandora panel that Evil doesn't know about and a Hazard Trigger. He just says the Hazard Trigger. So then he dies, and then they go back to their base. Grease is knocked out, and Sento's just trying to figure out what they're supposed to do with this white panel, the cards. He can't figure out the password. And then Evil starts attacking, so obviously they have to go fight him, but Grease is knocked out, so he can't go help. And then he's in his base form, and he says, you guys are probably wondering why I'm not in my complete form, huh? And they're like, well, yeah. Basically, he again transferred a bit of his DNA into Grease. So when Grease is brought back to the HQ, he basically woke up under the control of Evil, stole the CD bottle, and then came back, delivering the last of the Lost Smash bottles to Evil, allowing him to create his full Pandora panel and also return to his black hole form. And then basically what he does is he turns on Fever Flow in the Evil trigger, basically the equivalent of Overflow in the Hazard trigger. And then he basically just jams the panel into himself, and it turns him into this monstrous form. So I guess I can assume the only reason Evil didn't destroy all of Earth yet is because he wanted this panel, because he wanted the ability to transport instantly. Because as we see, he takes Sento to another alien world, and then he just eats it with his black hole, and then he brings them all the way back to Earth, and is he gets new arm gauntlets, and he's like, oh cool, I got a new power up, woohoo. So yeah, you feel how powerful he is. He feels a lot more powerful than black hole form, even though he doesn't necessarily look more powerful. But then they we got a 4-way rider kick. Like, you know, they start fighting. Of course they start fighting. Sento goes into Hazard Genius, which was pretty cool. I like the idea of Hazard Genius, even though it didn't change his suit at all. I would have loved a black Genius form. That would have been so cool. Anyway, so a Hazard Genius combined with the other 3 riders in a rider kick basically brought out the panel, and Sento used the power of the Hazard trigger along with the Genius form to basically shatter the 3 Lost Smash bottles. There are 3 of the Lost Smash bottles, basically turned them back into just normal Lost Match bottles, and then Grease gets the castle one, and then they all just, you know, they leave. So now Evil is stuck basically back where he started. He's still in his black hole form, but he doesn't have all the bottles, so he can't recreate the panel and get back his big monstrous evil form. Ooh. So I assume he's probably pretty angry. And then we also see that it's announced who the 3 new governors of the 3 different countries are, operated under the main prime minister, which is Evil. And then Evolt says, you better not tell those 3 what I'm planning. He tells that to Utami, because Utami's like, wait, you weren't trying to take over the country, you're just trying to destroy the world with the Pandora panel, or the Black Pandora panel. And then from here, episode 45, between episode 45 and 46, the movie takes place, but they really don't, like, address anything in the movie. So what I assume happens is, in the movie, the 3 governors die. I think that's all that really matters, and we lose the golden dragon full bottles. So that's honestly all that happens, I think. So then in episode 46, it starts off with Evil in the Pandora Tower, or in his like Prime Minister Mito form, and he basically turns into his black hole form and announces himself as Evil the alien, and threatens to destroy all of Japan if the Kamen Riders don't come to him with the bottle. So then Sento explains that the white Pandora panel gives access to parallel worlds. So I like this kind of dynamic. The black panel gives access to wormholes, the white panel gives access to parallel worlds. But it seems weird that the white one doesn't need bottles, but the black one does. It's okay. It's okay, this stuff is just last minute, and all of a sudden it's the most important thing in the story, which is probably my biggest problem. Just these last minute things are now, the most important things in the story. Whoa. So their plan is to bring the last CD bottle, or the castle full bottle, to Evil so he can purify them, create the black Pandora panel to create wormhole travel, and they're going to use the white Pandora panel to teleport, to basically access another parallel world without Evil or the Skywall, combine it with the Evil and the black Pandora panel to basically create a world without Evil or the Skywall. And I'm calling it right now, this alternate world is probably going to be our main Kamen Rider world, and they're probably going to just join that together, so when Geo happens, Geo doesn't need to like find some convenient way to go through time and alternate dimensions to get to Build's world. He's probably just going to go through time, because now that Build is part of the main timeline. That's what I assume is going to happen. So this alternate world is probably going to be this alternate world is probably going to be our main Kamen Rider world. So the Build also like Grease comes to him and asks like, oh, can I have a power up please? And I was like, I think that's what all the fans have been saying for 10 months, and there you go, Grease. Basically Sento says, yeah, sure, and he pulls out the Blizzard Knuckle that now has the Grease logo on it. He says, it was made for you, but I didn't have time to finish it. And I was like, that's a pretty good explanation, Toei. It was always made for him, they just never got to finish it. Wow. I'm okay with Grease getting a power up. Obviously we know he gets a power up. Sento explains, don't use this in the driver because it'll kill you like everything else in this series, but you can use it as a weapon. So he says, oh, don't worry, I don't have a build driver anyway, but as we see later, he's gonna steal the one from Shinobu, which I like. I like how they not like, oh, there's just a build driver here for Grease. No, I like they brought in the Shinobu build driver, and then Grease ends up using said build driver. So since he was already at hazard level 3, so it's pretty cool that, you know, it's very quick how he gets the form. So then they have a cookout before the big final battle with Evil, and as I said earlier, this is where we have the weird Grease kind of, should I wipe my face with the towel? Should I not? What should I do? That's a weird moment for me, but I do like the moment where Gensaku's like, alright everyone, it's been a rough couple days. And then all of a sudden everyone's like, well, yeah, cheers. And they start drinking, and he's like, oh, I had this whole thing ready. And he looks to his left, and you see all these shirts, because we've seen he's been like communicating through the shirts. It's really funny to see he just has all these shirts that I guess he was gonna like put on at the same time. And then like, I don't know, it was like a clever bit of humor, and I was like, aha, that was pretty funny, for me at least. So then they have this cookout, and then the next day, Evil, they all come to the Pandora Tower, they all transform. Evil explains, alright, here's how it's gonna go. You have to get to the top of the tower to beat me, but every 10 minutes I'm gonna destroy part of the country. And he's like, here, I'll demonstrate. Destroys that one part, and then 10 minutes later he also destroys another part. So they go inside the tower. It's basically like a maze. I assume we're gonna be stuck in this tower for a couple episodes, so it's probably to draw out like the whole story, which is fine. It's a big tower, so I would expect them to take a while to get to the top. So then the Hokuto trio reappears, but they're like mimics made by Evolt's DNA. So they're there to distract Grease, but like Grease like automatically knows, yeah, these are mimics. He like automatically punches the castle guy. I don't know their names, I'm sorry. He automatically punches him and is like, go on guys, they're fake, I'll deal with them. Evolt also explains they're mimics, so they go on. Grease is like fighting them at first, but then like when he's about to get them, they like start pretending to be the real deal, and then he like can't bring himself to kill them, at least. So then there's this really weird moment, but it's kind of like, ow, like basically Grease gets on the floor and slams his forehead into the floor, and I was like, ow. And he lifts his head up and there's just like blood there, and I was just like, what are you doing, man? Don't hurt yourself. Basically he says like he can't bring himself to fight them, I guess. And then he pulls out the build driver that was stolen from the HQ. He puts it on, he puts in the Grease Knuckle, or Blizzard Knuckle, my bad. And then he turns into Grease Blizzard in this nice like effect with all the fog. It really stands out. We got like a crackling snowflake. The one problem I have is he says, I'll let my passion burn, which is what he normally says, but he's in a blizzard form, so I would have preferred I'll let my passion freeze or something. I don't know. That's a weird thing, but it was cool. So I guess in the next episode, we're going to see Grease Blizzard make his full-on debut, because this was another, hey look, here's a form, get excited for next week. The one last thing that I didn't really notice at first until I had to go back to this part, where Misora's looking for the Shinobu build driver, I guess because she wanted to transform, which is kind of disappointing to see. We haven't gotten like that female Kamen Rider yet in this series. So basically then she's asking where the build driver is, which is how we know Grease stole it. But then when she turns around, Sawa's like, who hasn't done anything at all, so she's just kind of there. But she says, look, and she shows she's getting a call from Namba. So Namba is still alive, but it could just be Evil as Namba saying like, oh, you have to help me. But we very clearly saw Namba die, so I don't know what they're trying to pull here. But that's about it for all these episodes. I did enjoy all these episodes. I know sometimes I sound like I was a bit negative or a bit nitpicky. I guess I was just nitpicky. I did sound like I was a bit negative, but I did enjoy all these episodes. I just kind of feel like our like final battle is going to be with these devices that only came into the show in like the last 10 episodes. So that's a little weird, but I think Evil is going to be our final battle villain, which is cool because he's been with us pretty much the whole series. So when they defeat him, you're really going to feel like, we finally beat the big bad, not just like that last minute big bad who's like, oh great, now we have to beat a guy that just came in at the last second. The way we're going to beat him just came in at the last second, but the person we're beating isn't. So overall, I did enjoy these episodes, and I'm excited to see what's coming next for Build. And I'm excited to see what's coming next for Build. Looping Ranger vs. Paddle Ranger was probably the series I was most excited to watch this month, just because of the way we left off last month with Noel joining kind of sort of both teams, and he still had this air of mystery about him. I was very excited to see what they do with this, and it kind of worked with it, but kind of not really, which I'll hopefully get into later. So we start off basically exactly where we left off, where Noel's in the Drewer Bistro, and then basically he tells the Lupins kind of the opposite of what he told the Paddle Rangers, which is basically he told the Paddle Rangers that he's from the French HQ and he came here to help out. He was sent by the French HQ, and he's a spy for the Paddle Rangers, spying on the Lupin Rangers, and that's why he has his Lupin X form. But according to the Lupin Rangers, he is working for the Lupin family, and he infiltrated the police because they managed to get a hold of the Lupin collection. So he infiltrated the police to get the Lupin collection and put it to use, he said. But as we know, he ended up modifying it for human use, and now the Power Rangers are able to use them. But then what's interesting is he says, oh, I didn't know they were going to send it there. But then according to the Power Rangers, he modified it specifically for them, and then they got it, it was sent to them to battle Ganglers. So there's still this air of mystery about him. Like, both teams have a certain story for what he's doing on each side. And like, to me, every little thing that you ask him, like when they ask him something, he has an answer for it. Like, the Power Rangers ask him if he's a spy for the Lupin Rangers or spying on the Lupin Rangers. Does he know who they are? Can he tell them who they are? And he says he can't because he's under a different chain of command because he comes from the HQ, so he reports directly to the HQ. So it's like, oh, well, that's convenient. Like, I'm not complaining about how convenient it is. I'm like, it seems like he has everything thought out. So he's definitely, I think there's some truth to this. He's probably on his own working for the Lupin family and infiltrated both sides. I don't know, like, it's still kind of confusing what's going on here, but that's a good thing because it's still kind of mysterious what he's doing. But by the end of this episode, it's not entirely like, oh, what's Noel trying to do, because they don't really kind of do much with him in this mysterious sense. So basically, Noel tips a Gangler to the Lupin Rangers. The Paddle Rangers realize there's a Gangler who's like scrubbing down a dam, and it's gonna break and spill water. You know, generic break a dam, you know, flood the city. So the Paddle Rangers go there, and Noel tips off the Lupin Rangers with a call. So the Lupin Rangers show up, and they steal the Lupin collection. This monster doesn't really have a big impact on the episode. He's still there to bring both teams together to fight. But what I like is that he's not really like our main focus of the episode. Like, his plan never really has a big effect on anything. It never actually comes to fruition. He's just kind of there as a catalyst for both teams to show up, which is pretty cool to see kind of the monster trope being used a bit differently, because the main focus here is Noel. So basically, the Lupin Rangers show up and they steal the Lupin collection piece, and then, you know, like always, they're like, peace out. So they leave. The Power Rangers deal with the monster, and the safe lands in the water. So when Goshe shows up, she doesn't like want to get wet, or it's like a yucky river or something. I don't know. She doesn't want to revive him automatically, which is a nice way to explain why he takes so long to grow. Because then we see Lupin X shows up. So Noel shows up in his Lupin clothes for the first time. So he shows up, and then the Lupin Rangers show up, and then they ask, then he says, alright, I'm gonna need the treasure back. And then they're like, the part of the collection, and they're like, what? Why? Well, like, why do you need it back? And he says, oh, well, now I'm a thief that steals from other thieves. So the Lupin Rangers start fighting Lupin X for the Lupin collection. And I think, yeah, in the end of it, Lupin X does get the collection back, and then he also turns into Pattern X during that. And I guess I might as well point this out now before I forget. But Lupin X feels just Noel feels very much just kind of like a Kamen Rider. Like, the Lupin X, Pattern X forms aren't always necessarily used like, oh, I'm with the Lupin Rangers, gotta be a Lupin Ranger. Oh, I'm with the Power Rangers, gotta be a Power Ranger. He very much uses them kind of like a Kamen Rider switches forms. So he might be with the Power Rangers, and he'll transform as a Power Ranger first, but then eventually he's like, oh, well, I need the Lupin Ranger power, so he switches to a Lupin Ranger, and same applies when he's with Lupin Rangers. So the Lupin X, Pattern X forms don't really, or depending on which team he's with, it doesn't really affect what form he usually takes. So anyway, he beats the Lupin Rangers and gets the collection piece, and then the monster then grows large, and there's a nice line where he's like, why did Goshe take so long? Then I guess she got down and dirty and made him grow large in the water, and we don't really expand on that at all for the rest of the episode. And then the monster grows large, and, you know, Power Rangers go at it, and Pat Kaiser trains with the gold X train. So they beat the monster, you know, good stuff. And at the end of it, we have Noel talking to the Power Rangers, And basically at this point, once they saw him fighting the Lupin Rangers, they realize, you know, he's working with them. They don't entirely trust him yet, but they're like, alright, he's on our side, so we can trust him, kind of, sort of, but not entirely. So then I was like, oh, well, that kind of sucks for the Lupin Rangers, because then we see the Lupin Rangers, and they said, like, ow, that hurts. He didn't have to be so hard with it. Basically, we found out there was more to the phone call tip that Noel left earlier in the episode than we thought, because he also told the Lupin Rangers, I'm going to need to attack you, because the Powder Rangers don't completely trust me, so attacking you will make them trust me more. So they allowed that to happen, so now the Powder Rangers for sure kind of sort of trust Noel. The Lupin Rangers, like, it seemed like they're not completely on board with him, but they said, like, oh, we don't have to trust him, we just have to use him to our advantage. And that's where I thought the episode would end. And then we see Noel walking with Kogure, and he's about to hand over the collection, so not the collection piece, so I was thinking, okay, Noel's working with Kogure, simple. But then he says, first, let's have a talk. So then in the next episode, we figure out, it's not that big of a deal, but we figure out Noel just wanted to trade collection pieces with Kogure, so he hands over the collection piece he stole, and then Kogure hands him another collection piece, and I'm not sure if anyone's seen the scans, so yeah, but it's kind of obvious too. This is going to be another verse vehicle. I won't say which team in case you don't really want to know, but yeah, this is a verse vehicle, or soon to be verse vehicle. And it's interesting this happened so early, like this happened at the beginning of the month, and this verse vehicle is going to actually be a verse vehicle in next month, or this month, I guess. So it's kind of interesting how long, like, it's taking, because again, this doesn't really then do anything for the rest of the episode. So yeah, so then we see Noel show up at the bistro with the other Powder Rangers, and it's funny, this is the first time Noel's meeting the bistro owners, so Kairi, Toma, Umika. This is the first time he's meeting them as a Powder Ranger, because they've obviously met him a few times before, but this is obviously the first time, like, they're officially meeting him with the Powder Rangers, and since they have to keep up their identity, it's really funny just kind of seeing them all like, oh, it's nice to meet you, oh, it's nice to meet you, where, like, Noel's like, so you're Kairi, you're Toma, and you're Umika. It's just funny that, like, Noel's a very good actor, like, his actor is good, but, like, the character also is a good actor, so it just makes me wonder, like now I kind of don't trust him as much, because I'm thinking, like, anything he tells us could be a lie, because he's definitely good at acting. So just, that's something interesting I thought I'd point out. So then Noel finds out that Sakuya likes Umika, and he's like, oh yeah, I hope you succeed in, like, winning her heart, or something like that. So then when the Powder Rangers leave, Noel stays, and he's like, oh, I'm under a different jurisdiction, but it's really so he can stay with the Lupin Rangers and chat with them, right? So again, I like how, like, everything Noel does has this, like, definitive answer that no one on either side really questions, or the side he's tricking can't really question it. So we still don't entirely know whose side he's on, but sometimes he feels more like he's on the Powder Rangers side. Like, again, sometimes, of course, it feels like he's on the Lupin Ranger side, but he spends more time in this month in his Powder Ranger uniform than his Lupin Ranger uniform as a Phantom Thief. So it's kind of interesting, like, I don't know, you still don't entirely know which side he's on. So because Noel finds out that Sakuya likes Umika, when the Power Rangers leave, he's trying to, like, help them out here. So basically he stole Sakuya's phone and he gives it to Umika to go and give back to him because she thinks he, like, dropped it or something. But when she goes to give it back to Sakuya, the monster of this week starts attacking. And this monster basically turns people into goldfish and puts them in a vase. It's just your classic, I'm gonna capture you and put you in this small thing. But they turn into goldfish first, so that's kind of funny. So Umika goes to stop the monster, but when she's about to transform, then Sakuya shows up. So now she can't transform because she has to keep her identity. And she gets captured as a fish and then turned into a person again. And it's interesting to see her conflict in this episode because she's trying to decide whether or not to transform into a Lupin Ranger and reveal her identity and help all these people, or to just wait for someone else to come and save her. So at first she's, like, about to transform, and then Sakuya lands in, but we're not there yet, so I'm just gonna talk about something else for a second. So basically, Noel feels guilty about what happened with Umika because it is kind of sort of his fault since he's the one who sent Umika with the phone. But the Lupin Rangers do blame Noel for what happened, but Sakuya doesn't, because he says it's his fault Umika got captured, because he actually held the vase at one point, but then he was like being attacked from the monster and he couldn't figure out a way to save everyone. So basically, with Noel's help in Pattern X form, his idea is to basically just kind of shrink and get inside and blow it up from the inside, because shooting it from the outside, you don't really know what could happen to the people inside. But he realizes he's not strong enough once he gets inside. And then Umika, again, this is a point where she's like, should I help? Because I have another gun. I have another verse changer. So I could help, but then I'd reveal my identity as a Lupin Ranger. And at the last second, Noel jumps in as Pattern X because the Lupin Ranger showed up to like keep him busy or something. So then they blow up the vase, and then Noel tells Sakuya to get all the people to safety. And then Umika doesn't transform at all, so she goes with them. And then they, I think Noel goes into Lupin X then. So, you know, he just changes because, I'm with the Lupin Rangers now. One of the few times he only changes forms because he's with the team. So then they beat the monster. The monster grows large, and then this is a really funny thing. Basically, we see the first debut of X Emperor Slash and Gold, or Slash and Gunner. My bad. But the funny thing is that since Noel doesn't have a verse vehicle, and two parts of his Megazord require verse vehicles, he basically just hands them to he hands them to Toma and Kairi. He's like, could you please fire these off for me, gentlemen? Then he also does that in the next few episodes. So that's pretty funny, honestly, to see. He's like, oh, could you guys please fire these off for me? So they fire them off. He turns into, Gunner? No, he turns into X-Emperor Slash. And then I love the switching of X-Emperor from Slash to Gunner, Gunner to Slash. It's super funny because obviously if you haven't seen like any toy reviews, and I mean you could tell from this also, basically literally just flipping the Megazord and changing a few things is how he switches forms. So it's really funny to see he can just switch forms on a whim, just basically doing a cartwheel, and everything just changes. It's super funny. But it's really cool because that's just the way they designed the Megazords, and it allows for that. So that's just a really interesting, very cool thing. And again, it's just funny that the giant robot does a cartwheel. Bam, it's another giant robot. So X-Emperor beats the monster, and then at the end we get a nice bit of humor where we deliver on something earlier where Sakuya says, when people say, you're a very nice person, that's when they're about to reject him. So then at the end, when Umika's thanking Sakuya for saving her, she says, you're a very nice person, and then she leaves, and Sakuya's like, wait, does that mean, and then Noel's like, no, not at all, that's not what that means, it's like, what, and then they're all running around, Sakuya bumps into, Keiichiro, and he's like, Sakuya, and he runs after him. It's honestly really funny. So, the next episode, that's the end of that episode, the next episode is, basically, this has no Pattern Rangers in it. Like, usually the Pattern Rangers appear like once or twice. No Pattern Rangers in this entire episode, which, I don't know. But Pattern X appears, so, sure. Basically, the premise of this episode is that there's a monster that's kidnapping chefs, and basically the Pattern Rangers tried to go undercover, and basically go undercover as chefs to lure out the monster so they could get captured and save the people who are captured, but they're amateurs, they don't know how to cook. So basically, Noel's idea is, Toma, you're a professional chef, right? Why don't you pose as a chef teacher, and in doing so, the monster will come and capture you, and then blah blah blah. So basically they do that, and they get captured basically right away, with Noel as the assistant, Toma as the teacher chef. So they get captured and they're put on a boat. But then when they start fighting, basically this gang of monsters are called the Limon gang, because the main monster is a lion, that's Limon, so sure. And what's interesting is basically this monster is a status gold. This is our first appearance of a gold safe, or not a first appearance, but this is the first time the Lupin Rangers had to fight a gold safed monster. So that's pretty cool. And we see when they try to use the Lupin collection piece to open up his safe, it doesn't work. It basically, like, 3 numbers are said, and it says error, and it's, haha, you can't open my safe. We find out later how, but I'm gonna get to that when we get to that episode. basically, then Toma's collection piece gets damaged, and then Toma doesn't really trust Noelle to repair it, but he says, okay, your profession is cooking, and you love doing that. My profession is maintaining the Lupin collection, and I like doing that. So if we just, trust each other, let me fix your collection, you go to the cooking contest that this monster's holding, then, we can do this. So Toma goes to the collection, or not, Noelle repairs his collection piece, and Toma goes to participate in the cooking contest with the monster, which basically all it's going to do is secure him a cooking position with the monster. This takes up a decent chunk of the episode, and it honestly didn't need to be here. Like, really didn't, because it doesn't really further anything along. The only thing is literally just like in the episode itself, it just kind of stalls for time as Noelle fixes the Lupin collection piece. So I don't really like it at all. This is probably my least favorite episode out of all of them. The only reason I don't hate the episode is A, because it wasn't like bad. It's just kind of like, why do we have to be doing this cooking thing, guys? Can we like do something else here? And B, because this does set up the seeds for the future episodes, which I think are very good. Basically, we bring in the Limon gang, right? So we have this bull who gets defeated in this episode. We have the next guy who's named like Jiwi, who's the monster of the next episode, and then it sets up Limon as a status gold whose safe can't be opened at the current time, and then it also sets him up for the big bad of basically the end of this kind of arc of episodes. So the only reason I do like this episode is because it sets things up for the future episodes that are very good, but I don't really like this episode too much. Basically, all that's left is the Lupin Rangers show up, they beat the Bull Gangler, and then we get Noelle and in his Gunner Slash, no, the names are kind of confusing sometimes, Ex-Emperor Slash with Lupin Kaiser, and at the end we see that the Powder Rangers, oh yeah, so they are in this episode, huh? We see the Powder Rangers angry at Noelle kinda sorta because he solved the case with the Lupin Rangers, and I'm sure they're still kinda like, well, you did something with the Lupin Rangers, but you can't tell us who the Lupin Rangers are, and Keiichiro's just kind of like okay with it, like, oh, well, he did the job, it doesn't really matter. So he says all that matters is we need to find the two remaining monsters now, who's Giwi and Limon, and then now Toma trusts Noelle. So that's basically all that kind of came out at the end of this episode. So in the next episode, I wasn't expecting this. I was kind of expecting the two monsters to take part later in the series, but in the next episode, they're immediately trying to look for the remaining two ganglers in the gang. So basically in the bistro, there's these girls with pendants that are very lucky apparently, and then Kairi's thinking like, well, this is an obvious clue to a gangler. So he asks where they're selling them, and they tell him it's in like a club. So he goes to said club, and there's obviously a very suspicious dude who's obviously a gangler, but I wasn't expecting him to be Giwi because it just didn't seem like Giwi, but it was Giwi. So he turns into that. And then the Powder Rangers show up, and that's why he turns into a gangler. So he starts attacking, and Kairi's about to transform. Actually, like he pulls out his verse changer. I think he slid in the verse vehicle. But then Tsukasa sees him and is like, Kairi, what are you doing here? And he's like, hi. So she takes Kairi away, so because he's a civilian, he can't be here. So she leads him outside, and then she says, oh, we don't want your brother to be worried about you. And he's like, how'd you know that? And basically that's from when they thought the bistro owners were the Lupin Rangers, and they looked into them. So she knows he has a brother. She doesn't know said brother is dead because of that guy whose name I can't remember. Is Amigo. There we go. She doesn't know said brother is dead because of Zamigo, but she feels a connection to Kairi, she says, because she was in a similar position where her parents died and her grandfather raised her, but her grandfather was kind of like tough on her. But then when she was like almost hurt in an alleyway, then she realized her grandfather was only trying to care for her. So at that point she realized like, oh, he's only just trying to help me. And when Kairi thinks about the few scenes we only get in the show of his brother, he realizes that his brother is trying to do the same thing. So I guess at this point now they feel this connection for each other. So then basically Kairi just leaves. Tsukasa takes the pendant, and then next we find out that the pendants, when all the luck is used up, they create vines. So basically all these vines, or it's basically like kind of like Kamen Rider Gaim, the vines just kind of swallow the people and sapping their life force, it says, but it's just killing them basically. So then the Powder Rangers find out where Giwi is, and the Lupin Rangers also find out. So everyone shows up at basically the same time, and it's just kind of like this battle against Giwi with the Porterman, whose name I still don't like. And then basically this monster's Lupin collection causes, like, if you fire a shot at him, he basically just moves really quick around the laser shot. That basically, as they say, it gives him high evasive abilities, but it means he can't be killed. He can't be shot. So they realize, or Tsukasa gets the idea that with the pendant, which has luck inside of it, or like luck-based powers, that if she puts it on, hopefully she'll be lucky enough that when she shoots the monster, he'll, get damaged. It'll actually hit him because they're so lucky it hits him. So she's about to put it on, and I assume Kairi as Lupin Red, because of the moment they had earlier, and now, he kind of like understands Tsukasa more. He takes the pendant from her and doesn't want her to turn into vines, so he puts it on, and he like wounds Jiwi just enough that Toma could come in, take the collection piece, and now he can't move at all. But now Kairi's a bunch of vines. So then at the end though, I think the Power Rangers, they do end up destroying the monster, which turns everyone back to normal without the vines. And at that moment, Tsukasa realizes how much the Lupin Rangers need the collection. I think she says, like, it's not that they can't stop stealing, it's that it's not that they won't stop, it's that they can't stop. So she realizes kind of maybe like how important the collection is, or she realizes they need the collection, something to that degree. And then Jiwi grows large, and ex-Emperor Gunner and Pat Kaiser defeat Giwi, but Lyman is very, very angry because I guess the rest of his crew's just gone now. So he grows twice as large as as ex-Emperor Gunner and Pattern. So many Pat. Basically, he grows this larger than the Megazords and critically damages them, and that's where our episode ends. So in the next episode, which is the last episode of July, there is an episode out at the time of this recording, but I'm not reviewing that here because that came out in August, so it's technically part of the next Talking Jujube. So anyway, then like Lyman like damages them, and then he just kind of disappears without like anything. He basically I thought like something happened where Gaucher just grew him large for some reason, and because he was already normal sized or not killed, it grew him twice as large. No, this is just a power you can do. He's said to be able to destroy a world or two by Gaucher, so we know he's very powerful. So the Power Rangers are all injured because of the big attack, and Noel's the most injured, and he's actually in Kairi's house, which I think is actually in the bistro. So he's where Kairi usually is. And then he also knows about his brother. So in these two episodes, I was like, oh, Kairi, you're being reminded of your dead sibling a lot. I kind of feel bad for you. So basically, now Lyman goes to Zamigo, which he did in the last episode. But in this episode, he's like, well, I'm all on my own now. So do you want to work together, dude? And we can do everything. And Zamigo says, no, you just want me because, your collection piece doesn't work on me. That's interesting, because we know later on his collection piece makes him, invincible, basically. Like, you shoot him a bit, the piece comes back. You destroy him completely, all the pieces can come back there. He's basically invincible without taking out his Lupin collection piece, which is a very interesting dynamic. It means the Power Rangers can't defeat this monster without the Lupin Rangers destroying said monster, and without the Lupin Rangers opening the safe. And it's also interesting that the Lupin Rangers can't open the safe because he's a status gold and they don't know how to open said safes yet. So it creates this interesting dynamic where the monster is basically unbeatable. But what's also interesting is Zamigo said the collection piece won't work on him. And we know it's not really a collection piece that does damage, it's a collection piece that helps him. So does that mean Zamigo could kill Lyman? And it means that Zamigo has some special abilities that other collection pieces don't work on, or he can beat collection pieces. So this is a bit interesting. Like, Zamigo is kind of being built up to be this very, very powerful gangler. Hopefully he's the main villain of the Lupin Rangers, so the Lupin Rangers beat him. I don't want the Powder Rangers to beat him, because no one wants the Powder Rangers to beat him, because the Lupin Rangers, he has a history with the Lupin Rangers. The Lupin Rangers have a score to settle with him. Anyway, Norma's in Megorant because he's gone for the rest of the episode. So Limon starts battling the Power Rangers, and that's how we figure out his, his Lupin collection piece. And then, we get a cut to, like, now they're in the courtyard battling him or something. Noelle shows up, turns into Lupin X, starts battling. He's still very hurt. He starts battling Limon, but basically, he tries to open the safe, and then he gets knocked away, and Limon says, like, oh, you already know how I work. You can't open my safe, which is, again, only reason I like the cooking episode, because it sets those seeds for the later episodes. So then the Lupin Rangers show up and they ask Noelle why he did all that. Like, they're the ones on the suicide mission because they're the ones that need the collection to save their loved ones. And he says, no, you're not the only ones. He's also lost someone and he also needs the collection. So essentially this solidifies Noelle as a team in the Lupin Rangers' eyes, because basically the Power Rangers already pretty much trusted him once he started fighting the Lupin Rangers. But now that the Lupin Rangers know he's essentially like them, he's a phantom thief that needs to steal in order to save a loved one with the Lupin collection, it basically solidifies Noelle as a Lupin Ranger in their eyes. So now he's basically a solidified part of each team, which is pretty cool. And I guess I'll say this now. What I was thinking at first is my biggest problem with Noelle is he had this very big mystery about him when we first met him, and then he's just kind of there. He occasionally works with this team, he occasionally works with that team, but then as I started talking about him in the first episode of this month, I do realize that he's not entirely on each side. Like, when you just think about it, yeah, he's on this team, he's on that team. It's kind of, sort of, not really. But then you think that he's told a different story to both teams, and we still don't really have confirmation of what he's trying to do. So it's interesting that, like, I was thinking at first, Noelle's just kind of, well, now he's just a 6th Ranger to both teams. No, he's still a 6th Ranger to both teams, but he still has this mystery about him. He's not entirely solved. So I'm hoping we do find out more about what his deal is later on. And yeah, he is probably my favorite character because he is so mysterious and he's so charismatic also. So anyway, what Noelle attacked the Gangler for was to figure out the secret behind status golds. Basically, they need 6 digits to open their safes, and the Lupin Rangers Dial Fighters can only access 3 digits at a time. So they need 2 Dial Fighters to put on the safe at a time in order to open up said safe. Which means when we get into status double golds, or whatever they're going to be called, like Destra, who has 2 gold safes, that's a lot of Dial Fighters to open up the safes. So that's kind of funny. So then basically they open up the safe, Lupin X, or actually, hold on, before I get to that, again, as I said earlier, it brings up the point that the Power Rangers need the Lupin Rangers to beat this monster. So Tsukasa says they need to work with the Lupin Rangers. The Power Rangers and the Lupin Rangers need to work together to beat this monster, because again, they can't. The Power Rangers can't do it on their own, and as we've seen, the Lupin Rangers can't really do it on their own either, with the need of 2 Dial Fighters. So basically, we have Power Rangers and Lupin Rangers working together to hold the monster back, allowing Lupin Red and Lupin X to use 2 Dial Fighters, open the safe, take the Lupin collection. Now, the Limon is not invincible, but I don't think he's not actually defeated. He just grows large. That's, again, just a power that he has. So he grows large, twice as large as any Megazord, and now they realize, okay, how do we beat him now? Because again, he's twice as large as any Megazord. Good Striker shows him and it's like, oh, well, you guys could just join together. Like, like, I like how, like, in most Power Ranger series, it's like, oh, you have the power to join together because you're best friends now. You know which series I'm talking about. I like how here Goody's just like, oh, well, you guys can combine together. You want to do that? And you're like, yeah, sure. So they form BSX, which I'm not sure if I talked about how I feel about it before. I guess we'll talk about the fight scene, because the fight scene redeemed it for me. At first, I was just like, well, it looks okay. I don't really like the Lupin Ranger Dial Fighters on the shoulders. I don't really like how clunky the feet are. I thought it was going to be a very clunky Megazord when it fights, but this fight scene is so cool because it's all CG. Just like the first couple Megazord battles, so it's just all CG, and it makes it very dynamic, despite how clunky looking it looks, and it redeemed it in my eyes. If every fight is just like this afterwards, which is also what we said, in the beginning. So I don't think that's going to happen. But if every fight with BSX was like this, I think BSX would be very, very cool. It's probably not going to happen, but this first fight scene did redeem VSX in my eyes, because despite how clunky it seemed very dynamic, and it was kind of funny to see it being this dynamic despite, again, how clunky it is. So since it's twice as large as a normal Megazord, now it's the same size as Limon and allows him to defeat Limon. And we see the boss Dogranio. He's angry because Limon was very powerful and he's got destroyed. So what he says is, I don't remember specifically what he says, but he says like, okay, well, if they could defeat Limon, I need to go do something. So I assume he's gonna maybe call in Zamigo to help out or something like that, or maybe he's gonna go recruit a different group of ganglers to help out, maybe non-ganglers that are super powerful. I don't know, but the Dogranio is definitely raising the stakes now with Limon getting destroyed. And then at the end, we get Noelle accepted as a Phantom Thief. And actually, I haven't talked about this yet, but the Megazord cockpits are very cool, and it was definitely funny to see Lupin Red and Pattern Red Pattern Ichigo, my bad, had to be put in the same cockpit since Pattern Ichigo hates the Lupin Rangers. So he's like yelling at him, and then Lupin Red says like, "Oh man, you're getting spit everywhere," and he says, "Oh, I'm sorry." "Wait, that's impossible!" And he's like yelling, and then Good Striker's like, "Alright, I had enough of this. Seat change," and he switches Pattern Ichigo with Pattern Sango, and Tsukasa just like, "Oh, hi," because obviously she's the one who came up with the idea to help the Lupin Rangers. So Guzzy just kind of realized like, well, she's probably not the one who's gonna yell at Lupin Red. So yeah. So again, at the end, Noelle's accepted as a Phantom Thief, and that's where the episode and this month ends. So overall, I did enjoy all these episodes. Again, as I said, this was the group of episodes I was most looking forward to, because I wanted to see how they would resolve the whole Lupin X Pattern X theme. I do feel like it's kind of a shame that Noelle doesn't have entirely this air of mystery about him, but because, again, as I said, just kind of saying it out loud, I did realize how much of a mystery he still is, because he is, again, a team with both teams, but he doesn't you still don't entirely trust him, because we don't entirely know why he's a team with both teams. And obviously he's told a lie to somebody. Is he a part of the HQ infiltrating the Lupin Rangers? Is he a Lupin Ranger who's infiltrated the HQ to work with the Pattern Rangers? Again, we don't know what angle he's working with here. So because of that, I definitely enjoyed these episodes, and I'm looking forward to what's coming next with Lupin Ranger vs. Pattern Ranger. So this Shattered Grid issue was also very cool. We're really leading up to that finale. I think we only have issue 30 and then issue 12 of the Go-Go Power Rangers, and then they're releasing like a separate on its own finale issue, and then we lead into Beyond the Grid, which is going to follow a new team of Rangers after, I guess, they beat Draken, because it's assumed they're going to beat him. So this issue is very, very cool. It has probably my favorite moment in all of the comics so far, and maybe all of Power Rangers. So we start right off where the last issue ended, where we have all the Rangers in the, all the leftover Rangers from teams, all the rescued Rangers, going over their plans. Ninjor explains what Draken's trying to do, and they realize that his teams, his army, is getting all its power from this big tower that's transmitting the power across all the grids. So they're going to try to take down this tower until something crash lands outside of the base. When they go outside, they see it's Andros in Space Red, who's part of the Beyond the Grid team. So then he explains that he knows where the captured Rangers are, and he says they're on the moon. He doesn't actually specify which moon, because obviously we know there's like cross-dimensional stuff going on here. It's definitely not this moon for a reason we know at the end of the comic. So he says the moon, so I mean they know it's a moon. So anyway, probably his Earth's moon, now that I think of it. So that was kind of dumb. But they know that the Capture Rangers are on the moon. So they're discussing, what to do to get to that moon. Andros is explaining, and we actually see that he sees Corone, because Corone is from a part in the future where she becomes a ranger, but I don't think Andros is from a part in his time where he knows she's alive as a certain character down. I'm not going to say in case you haven't seen In Space for some reason. So basically then, yeah, they have a nice moment together, which is sweet to see. And then Kruger, Commander Kruger from SPD, is actually featured a decent amount in this, and he's talking to Zordon. He says it's nice, or one of them says it's nice to see that we have a nice moment amidst all this chaos. Kruger says, I'm sorry about your 6th Ranger, and then Zordon says it's been hard. And then we also get a moment with Jason talking to Grace, and she's basically, I mean, she's there to help. And then it's nice to kind of see that, like, after Tommy died, he's put in a situation like Grace where her entire team died. Obviously not as drastic, but he's put in a similar position. So it's, and then with obviously reality being at stake, it's nice to see that they called her in, kind of like, oh yeah, we forgive you for holding Draken, even though you're kind of the reason this all happened. And she actually says, basically, when they plan to go to the moon, they say, we don't have enough Rangers, but how are we even going to get them all there? And she says, oh, we can take my ship. And she pulls out a hologram of her ship, and it's Terra Venture from Lost Galaxy. So that's a cool little piece of, like, lore there, like, that, I mean, obviously Boom created it, but it's a nice little Easter egg, and it's just a cool way to kind of expand upon the universe, like, oh, hey, she made this, and, I mean, her Promethea base is Terra Venture, and I guess it was a ship this whole time, but she said it's not done, so they're gonna try to finish it. Or I think she said they'll do the job, so they're probably not going to finish it. And if Terra Venture gets destroyed, or if Promethea, I guess, / Terra Venture gets destroyed, I wonder what that means for the Lost Galaxy team. But then, anyway, then Alpha says, we sent a message to the other Rangers, and then they're all coming. And then we get this awesome shot of, like, all the Rangers coming down, like, all these streaks of light in the sky. And then we get a shot of all the Rangers that came, and that was a really, really cool shot. And if you look closely, there are a few things. I mean, you can obviously see a lot of Rangers. I believe it's like every Ranger that we haven't seen so far. You can see Time Force, Quantum in the front. You can see in the back Ninja Steel, everyone's favorite team. I mean, you can also see Mystic Force. You can see Hyper Force, which is pretty cool. And honestly, my favorite part of this, which actually like just gave me a big goofy grin on my face when I saw it, Beast Morphers is actually very prominent in this image. Like, they're not off in the back, like, oh look, it's a little Easter egg, it's Beast Morphers. No, they're just bam right there in the front, and I'm like, that's pretty cool. They know Beast Morphers is confirmed, so they're like, hey, let's just put them right there. So that's pretty cool. I wonder if they're probably not gonna talk at all in the next issues because we don't know anything about Beast Morphers yet. But I hope they kind of get featured prominently in some panels, because that would just be pretty cool, kind of to hype up Beast Morphers. So then the issue ends, or actually there is one part I missed I'm gonna go over before we reach the end of the issue. So we get a moment with Draken in his base where they pull out, or he's talking to Skull, who obviously has been an imposter in his ranks for all this time, and he's like, oh, you believe what you were doing? And he's like, yeah, you bet I do. So he snaps his neck. Yeah, okay. So then he snaps his neck, he kills him, and then Finster 5 says that they've detected the Ranger Slayer and that they can speak with her, but they can't bring her to them because she's like so far behind the fracture point, since they accidentally sent her too far in the past. Because I think she was supposed to, what I think she was supposed to be doing is essentially probably sent to where Draken killed Tommy, because that's probably what his plan was this whole time. Yeah, I think so. She was probably originally going to be sent to where Draken killed Tommy in the first issue of Shattered Grid, but that didn't really happen. She got sent too far, and with Draken coming back, he went, fine, I'll do it myself, and he did it. Or what I was thinking at first is probably she was sent to kill Tommy before that specific fracture point, and in doing so, Draken would come back, because killing Tommy would mean that they never went to the alternate universe. But I'm pretty sure now that I think of it, it's probably to cause the fracture point. So obviously, again, Draken did it himself, and the Ranger Slayer is stuck in the past, like too far in the past. So they're talking with her, and then Finster 5 is noticing the whole time, like, wait, she doesn't have her bow, she's acting differently. She's like telling Draken, and then when she says, like, when she kind of is like, oh, I don't know, was that the best idea about killing Tommy? Then they're like, what's going on here? Like, where's your bow? And then she reveals that she's not evil anymore. So at first I was kind of like, well, that's kind of that sucks. Like, we just kind of redid a Green with Evil storyline with Kimberly in the alternate universe, so basically Pink with Evil, sure. But then I thought it's kind of interesting that since obviously the earlier events happened in this alternate universe, when you think about it, it's interesting that Rita sees Tommy and controls him with the Sword of Darkness, and once the Sword of Darkness breaks, he stays evil, and when he becomes the Overlord, then he captures someone else and gives them a different item of darkness to control them. So it's kind of interesting, like, I guess because this world's Tommy was kind of twisted in some way, he kind of did what happened to him. I guess he just wanted to see it happen to someone else. But an also interesting thing is that when the Ranger Slayer says, or basically they end the conversation, he's like, oh, your mind is clear again. Well, you know, you won't be a problem. And then she leaves. I guess the portal closes, and he says her name, like, normally he calls her the Dragon Slayer, Ranger Slayer. This time he called her Kimberly. So it's kind of interesting to see, like, oh, well, I guess it makes sense he mind controlled Kimberly of all people, because as we know, that's, you know, they like each other and all that. So he also says, and he turns to Finster 5 immediately and says, you need to find her right now. So I guess she can have an effect on Draken's plans. And this same kind of, like, the conversation was then played in the Go-Go Power Rangers issue, and at the end of that issue, Kimberly is trying to find, like, she's trying to do something. So what could be happening here is I thought she's just trying to come to the present time that we're in right now to kill Draken, and she's going to be the hero, you know, kills Draken, or she's trying to stop the fracture point from ever happening. So she's going to go forward in time to Draken before Draken killed Tommy. Like, probably when he jumps in right there, she shoots her bow, kills Draken, the fracture point never happens, and I assume, but that seems kind of like little bad to me, because basically you're making the Shattered Grid a event that never happened, which seems kind of bad because you want this to happen because this is a pretty cool event. Or it could be what I said in the first place, she's going to kill Draken and she's going to restore the grid, and in doing so, she becomes the hero of this, and that leads into Beyond the Grid, where she's the leader of a new team of Power Rangers, and I guess the other Rangers just retire or something. I don't know. I'm very interested to see how the Shattered Grid's going to end for Beyond the Grid, because it's a very crazy hodgepodge of Rangers, including Andros, coincidentally, and in the shot of all the Power Rangers, you can actually see in the back we have what has been confirmed named the Dark Ranger, which is the Talon Ranger from Dino Charge. But now he's called the Dark Ranger, and he's finally getting an appearance in official media. Woohoo! And then, as I was going to say earlier, the issue ends with Kruger asking Zordon, Kimberly asks Zordon, the normal Kimberly, she says, so what are we going to do with Draken, because even if we take down his tower, cripple his entire army, he's still the most powerful being in reality. And then he says, don't worry, we have a fix for that. And then at the end, we see Kruger and Zordon in a hallway saying, are you sure you know what you're doing? And Zordon says, oh, I'm sure. She's the only one that can help us. And you see Rita just sitting in her throne with her minions by her side, and I was like, oh man, I forgot Rita was still in this. So yeah, it's cool to see that Rita, the big bad, old big bad of Power Rangers, who's really hasn't done anything in the Shattered Grid at all, and she's been kind of missing in action in the comics, at least, or at least the main comics. She's had a few appearances in Go-Go, but she hasn't been doing anything in these main comics since before the Shattered Grid. So that's pretty cool to see she's gonna go against Lord Draken. So it's basically a good old-fashioned Rita versus Tommy battle. And yeah, I'm excited to see where the Shattered Grid is going to go. We know the next issue is going to be the last Shattered Grid issue in the main series, and then there's going to be a finale issue. So I'm going to try to review both of those depending on when they come out. And then from there, it's Beyond the Grid. And Ninja Steel is coming back, but I have to be honest, I don't really feel like wanting to review Ninja Steel anymore. I don't really like Ninja Steel that much. Like, it's not that I'm like, oh, I hate Ninja Steel so much, but it's just such a okay show. It's not that good. It's pretty bad. I don't really want to review it anymore. I'd rather review these comics since they're very, very good comics. So I might review Ninja Steel in the future still alongside the comic, but that's kind of like a lot to review for Power Rangers. So stay tuned for that, but it's probably not going to be any more Ninja Steel reviews. But the Shattered Grid issue of this month was very, very cool, and I'm looking forward to see what's gonna happen. So that was my review of all of the comics and episodes of this month. I hope you all enjoyed them. Let's get into the rankings. In 4th place, I'm going to put the Transformers Bumblebee prequel. I didn't hate this prequel comic, or 2 prequel comics. It's still not over yet, of course. I'm going to review those when they come out. But I just didn't really like it that much. There's something about it that just doesn't feel entirely right. And again, like, it doesn't fit with any continuity. And that's probably just me, like, really liking, like, continuity to be right. But I don't know, there's just something about these comics I didn't really enjoy, and because of that, it's in 4th place. In 3rd place, we've got the Shattered Grid, or MMPR issue number 29. This was a great issue. It's definitely, like, very good. I just put it in number 3 just because it's good, but I like the other 2 better than it. So it was very good. I definitely enjoyed what we're doing. I'm definitely excited to see how the Shattered Grid is going to end. It was, again, a very good comic, but I like the other 2 better. So in number 2, we've got Kamen Rider Build. So Build is coming down to a close, and while the stakes are being raised, everything's, getting up to a high point. I just kind of feel like the ending here is gonna be a little, like, oh, out of nowhere. Like, the white panel just kind of came out of nowhere. Like, the father kind of came out of nowhere. You're not sure if he's good or evil, and then he's good, but he's not good, but he's evil. I don't know. So the ending here does kind of feel like a little kind of weird. So in number 1, we've got Lupin Ranger vs. Power Ranger. Woohoo! So I did very enjoy this set of episodes for Lupin Ranger vs. Power Ranger. While the cooking episode is probably my least favorite of these episodes, my favorite part about it is that it left seeds for the other 2 episodes to pick up on, and it definitely picked up on those seeds. And we got this awesome arc with the Limon gang, and it was just very cool to have this kind of set of monsters that we knew we had to take down, and this very powerful monster leading to our first team up of the Lupin Rangers and Power Rangers. So that's my ranking for this month. If we had to get a number 0, it goes to Avengers Infinity War, because I finally saw it again in an airplane. So number 0 is Infinity War, despite the terrible, terrible edits on airplanes. Airplanes, just keep the movies the way they are. Don't blur out the middle fingers that you obviously know you can't edit around. Anyway, let me know what you thought of these episodes down in the comment section, and if you enjoyed this, please consider hitting that big red subscribe button, and if not, take a look around the channel. You'll probably find something you'll enjoy, and I hope to see you next time. Thank you for watching.